Good morning, friends. Well, this is going to be a fairly sedate, I think, session. Let's do an ink and paint on the shot I started yesterday, which is a long shot. This shot alone is going to be like 20 seconds. This is all Melchizidek. So I posted a comment or a community post here on YouTube regarding Krita 5.0.5, which I retracted. So what I had commented on was that a few things. Some of the timeline navigation in 5.05 does seem to be improved. That is true. You're not going to believe this, but the caveat turned out to be, I wish I could say I was surprised, but the caveat turned out to be that in Krita 5.0.5, and obviously someone else may have it installed and have a different experience, but for me, I couldn't change brushes. So for everything that got fixed, what got rebroken was so catastrophic that all of a sudden the program's completely unusable. So, there you go. That's the bad news. The good news is I went back to what I'm using, which I think is actually the 5 beta. Yeah, 5.0.0 beta 1, which is what I've been using for a while. And I searched the docs, and one of the things that I've been annoyed with Krita 5 is the inability to rewind. But as I say, I searched the docs because I figured if I Google it and I can't find anywhere on the planet that anyone else has bumped into this problem, then I'm sure that I'm the problem. You know, there's something I'm doing wrong. Well, yeah. Basically, the thing in Krita is if you hit the spacebar to play, when you hit the spacebar again, you're not stopping. You're only pausing. So I needed another hotkey. I looked in the keyboard shortcuts and realized I have no hotkey assigned for stopping. So I changed that to Shift spacebar. Okay, and the trick with stop is that when you stop, Krita returns to wherever you started, and then if you hit stop again a second time, it goes ahead and goes back to the first frame. So for me, I'm like, okay, that'll work. I can live with that. The other thing is, I think I had the canvas mirroring set up to be based on actually mirroring the layers, which made it either non-performant on the one hand or not work at all on the other. And then I realized in the hotkeys that what is it? There's I think what I looked up was horizontal. Yeah, and it's really mirror image horizontally is what I wanted. So I switched that to M, and now it works. It's a little less performant than Krita 5.0.5. In other words, I'm going click, boom. So it takes about a half a second to, do it, but at least it does it. So that's a good thing. Another thing that I'm doing on this particular shot is I'm going to get a little bit more rigorous going forward about keeping things on separate frames. So kind of per our discussion yesterday, I am going to go ahead and leave the pencil test on a separate layer than the ink. So, which means I'm not going to do as much fluid drawing and inking at the same time, but as we discussed yesterday, it's not like I really do that often anyway. So, or need to. So what I'm going to do is actually, well, I don't want to copy this ink because the pencil test is baked into it. So just to be clear, the first 2 frames, the red and the black, are in the same frame. So let's clean that out right now so that we kind of know what we're dealing with here. So what I want to do is Alt-M, which I have mapped to color to alpha, and I'm on the wrong layer, sorry about that. So Alt M, color to alpha, and then probably if I just hit Shift F, nope, that didn't work, so it's going to have to be Alt M again. Yeah, because even if you hit Shift F, it still defaults back to using white as the alpha color, or the color that it's going to make transparent. So there we go. So now we've got the first two keyframes inked, and everything's clean, and going forward, as you can see, the ink and paint will be on separate layers. So having done that, I can now duplicate this one in order to hit G, E, and just basically erase everything that needs to be removed so that I can carry forth with my inking work. So yeah, a little disappointing on 5.0.5, but then again, at the same time, it's not like there's, you know, for me, I was looking for bug fixes anyway. It's not as if I really needed to, you know, there's no features in 5.0.5 that are compelling for me. Oops, I didn't hit the E key apparently. So, no big deal. So yeah, and in fact, I mean, I'm always kind of poking around and seeing what the options are, and I did do a little fiddling with Blender this morning. I did a little more fiddling back in Tahoma, and I'm just like, you know, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, staying mostly here in Krita and living with some of the weirdnesses that do come up. Just because I'm getting work done, you know, even though it's a little annoying at times. The little buggies that jump out at you and bite you. So, all right, I'm gonna actually loop this and go. I need to go blow my nose, so I'm gonna turn that off. I'll be back in a minute. Check, check, check. Oh, thought I turned the microphone off. I guess I did not. There we are. Okay, so just back to work, right? This could be maybe just a little bit brighter. And again, I want to hit Shift spacebar to return to the frame that I started on. Okay, so now there is one thing here. Yeah, so we're just going to do this the simplest way, which is to just grab his head and then make that slight change, and then we'll just clean it up. Okay, B key, Control Shift A, so I don't have a selection, and now back into the grunt work of getting the ink laid in. So at this point, for me, I'm sticking with Krita 5.0 Beta 1, because every other version I have fiddled with, including the official 5.0 when it came out, was more buggy, unstable, whatever. than the beta. You know, I have no idea why, but there it is. Hey, Maria. There it is. Yeah, I was kind of shocked on Krita 5.0.5 to discover that, you know, oh, by the way, you can't ever change brushes. Really? Okay. Okay. That's what you're going to do. Well, what Krita really needs is a major refactor, actually, is the long and the short of it. Krita just needs to be completely refactored because there's just too many places in the code that are clearly just spaghetti code, where you've got side effects all over the place in the code base. So they fix one thing and it breaks something else, and they don't even realize they broke it. You know, because the code, it's the only explanation I can come up with. You know, that there must be just rampant, side effects happening, that there's just so many they can't track them all down and squash the bugs. And the only solution to that is to refactor the code, which is risky. I mean, you're assuming that, you know, you're going to do a good job of refactoring the code, and if the refactor is just as careless as the situation that got you into spaghetti code in the first place, then it just doesn't do any good. You just have more of the same where you... But, you know, this is true of lots of software. The quality control standards in software are atrocious. You know, if the auto industry was like software, then you'd get in your car and basically you'd turn the key and usually the car would start, but sometimes the lights would all come on and the car wouldn't start. Or, you know, you'd put it into drive and, you know, about every 7th time it would actually go in reverse. Stuff like that. I mean, I'm not actually being that snarky. That's basically normal quality control standards for software. And it's been the case for a long, long time. Okay, so what I want to do here is, yeah, let's go ahead and, did I get all that inked? Okay, so let's just duplicate that frame. So I can then completely erase this. So I'll just redo the expression, and then we need to get these guys changed. Okay, I didn't hit the E key. Either I didn't hit the E key, or more likely actually, because I felt myself hit it. So what actually probably happened was I hit it, but Krita didn't catch the hotkey. Which happens sometimes. It's not the end of the world. Okay, B key, E key, so I'm not in erase mode anymore. I just want to smack that down like that. Okay, there's that. This actually should be overlapping that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is go back to this, grab the S key. I'm just going to carefully grab that, hit Control C, and go to the next keyframe, which is going to be here. So let's go Control Insert, so we're making a copy, and then hit Delete to kill that ink, and then Control Shift V to paste the copy in. So then we'll just do the same thing here. S key to select this, Control C, go forward 2 keyframes, delete it, and then Control Shift V to paste the copy in there. And now I would go ahead and duplicate those keys, except that his face needs to be drawn, and it looks like here we've got actually a change in his head position anyway, so let's see, so he's going, yeah, I guess that's a tween, isn't it? Sort of. Whoops, we don't want to be in erase mode. Must have a selection, Control Shift A. There we go. When you start painting and for some reason mysteriously no paint comes out, that's usually why. There's a selection somewhere. And if you have a selection somewhere on your drawing, then you only can draw into the area that's selected. So, hey Darren, it's a flying visit for me. You're here for 10 minutes? Okay, cool. Good to see you, buddy. This is just a garden variety paint session. Okay, so now I think I'm going to just erase his head and redraw it, just to sort of keep things clean here. It looks like I had already inked it on the other layer, but I'm going to go ahead and redo the ink. I'm trying to get all the ink onto a separate layer from the pencil test, just to keep things clean. That's one area where Krita is quite performant, as I think I've mentioned probably a few times, is that Krita's very good with managing lots of layers and animation keyframes, frankly. Krita's weaknesses have more to do with just stupid interface stuff, really, would be my assessment. Okay, and so what we're probably going to wind up doing here is, and by the way, getting back to Blender, one of the deal breakers for Blender, because for pencil tests, Blender is amazing because you can just instantly hit the E key and go into sculpting mode and sort of dial in what you're drawing, and so it's really nice for the pencil test. But the thing is, that's true of all the programs. All the programs are great at the pencil test stage, up until you get into ink and paint, and then usually ink and paint and then keyframe management is where most applications seem to fall apart. I'm going to hit the Q key and turn on the stabilizer. Yeah, it looks like on 5.0.5 they also changed the stabilizer settings, so these settings didn't work at all. The stabilizer was a lot more aggressive. I can't say that I liked it. I mean, I got it dialed in so it worked pretty much the same. But, again, working with 5.0.5 and then finding out. Well, basically, here's what happened. I hit this and I switched brushes and literally nothing would happen. It would stay on the same brush. And then I went up here and I started just picking brushes randomly. And, you know, I closed Krita and reopened it and did the whole thing. And, like, you cannot change brushes. Now, I'm sure everybody else on the planet who uses Krita doesn't have that problem. Probably not. You know, so who knows? But what do you do with that? You know, it's like, okay, I quit. N key. Okay, so now what we're going to do, this will be a duplicate. So we'll make a duplicate here, control drag. If you really wanted to, you could go clone the keyframe and then paste, and that would make this a clone so that if anything changes to this one will change as well. I don't usually do that, but there it is. Okay, so that little change in his head is wrong. So what I want to do is actually just cut and paste, probably from here. Just go S key and just grab this head, because this is what doesn't change. So I'm just being careful to catch it right here around the tangents there, like that. So Control C, now I can go back, sorry, one keyframe. I better hit Control Insert. Do I want to do Control Insert? Actually, I don't think I do. Down, up. This is supposed to be down, so I don't want to do Control Insert. In fact, what I want to do is just actually I just want to do insert. So Control Shift V, so that gets his head in there. And then what I'm going to do, watch carefully friends, is I'm going to go, I think it's Control Shift I. Yeah, Control Shift I, invert the selection. Now I can go Control C. I'm sorry, go here. Let me just see, down, up. This is supposed to be down. So I want to go Control C, Control Shift V, and paste all the rest of the ink in there. And now I'm seeing a little too much on the drawing underneath, so I'm going to hide it for a bit so I can get this cleaned up. Yeah, there's quite a bit of cleanup to do here actually. So, arthritic one. Hi, arthritic one. I don't know that I've seen you here before, but so welcome to the live stream. Today is just as I said, a garden variety ink and paint day, because this shot of Mel is a really long shot. It's about 20 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is just go through and just meticulously start cleaning things up, because I've got quite a bit of holdovers here from the pencil test that are looking kind of messy. So I'm just hitting the E key to go into erase mode. We'll just get this cleaned up. It's all tween, so, I mean, you know, it's going by pretty fast, so it's not like it has to be super meticulous, but yeah, this is a mess, isn't it? And actually, let me go back here. Yeah, what we really should do, let's just hit the GE. Oh, come on. See, I hit E and it, now this time I know it did what I said. I hit the E key to go into erase mode and it just didn't take. Just like Krita didn't catch it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to this frame and I'm going to select this entire region. This is really a useful technique that comes up over and over for me with Krita. So that all looks clean. So I'm going to go Control C and then go to the next frame and just hit delete. And then Control Shift V to paste it into the current frame, and that just cleans everything up on that frame as well. We probably have, well, we don't have a similar situation here because his head position changed. So what we do have is the same situation here. So what I want to do here is go Control C, go to the next frame, and just do the same operation again. Control Shift V. You can see there's a little issue there with his hair, of course, but we'll get to that. And that one looks fine, so okay. Boom. Control Shift A, go into B key, then into erase mode, get rid of that mess right there. We do have a little bit of a problem because the little hairs that are behind are not in the shot, which is kind of unacceptable. As I said yesterday, the hairs that show up underneath his ears are really important for Mel. He does not look like Mel if he doesn't have the hair underneath his ears. Sounds kind of crazy but true. And I just hit E again, and by gum, Krita, don't make me smack you. Why is that? Oh, this is in curve mode. Yeah, curve mode for the freehand path tool in Krita is really, really useful. But the curve precision, which is the default, like every time you use the tool it goes back to curve mode, is an abomination. It's utterly and completely useless because it imposes a level of post-production smoothing that you almost never want. So for that reason, every time I ever use the freehand path tool to just draw shapes or do a lasso erase job, you know, I have to remind it to go back to raw mode, and nothing you do will make it remember that that's the setting you prefer. So get over it, people, is basically the Krita credo is suck it. Suck it. We're giving you a lot of really cool features and capabilities in this free software, and if you don't like the way some things work, then suck it. It's not completely unreasonable. They don't actually say that, but it's really not an unreasonable position for the developers to take, if the truth be known. All right, so Control C. So now I'm just going to do the same little cleanup operation here, like that. And then let's go forward to this one. I don't even know if there's any difference. I'm going to just play it safe. Okay, we're kind of at the place where we can really start moving forward now. Wow, a lot of stuff in the chat. Hi, guys. Thanks for... Hey, Full Chain, good to see you, buddy. Tom, good to see you. Again, Arthritic One, I can see from the chat that Arthritic One knows everybody from somewhere else, either the Discord or maybe Darren's Discord or Darren's live streams or whatever. So, always good to have more people coming to check things out. So, this is all looking fine. I'll give you guys a taste of it in case you weren't here yesterday. I'll give you a taste of what's going on here. Let me look at the script. We're actually working on this would be Salt and Light episode 8. So up to now we've posted. I mean, I should say I've posted up to episode 6, and is that right? And then episode 7 is ready for voices, and I guess I could switch over here. So if I am not mistaken, this is what we've got going on. Episode 6 I posted earlier this week. Episode 7 is ready for voices and sound. And then episode 8 is what I'm working on actually right now, animating. So now we're into this section. So in the first 48 minutes of the show, there's really just this remaining section that still needs to be animated and, you know, ink and paint and the whole deal. So having said that, what we have here is after all this drama with, you know, Golek finding the letter, which if you don't know what the letter's about, you need to go back and watch all 6 first episodes, right? Get yourself caught up. And Mel is, yes. So Mel is saying here, he's saying, I didn't technically lose the letter, right? Because it was stolen. And I should probably insert a keyframe here so it's a little easier to see what the heck's going on. I didn't lose it because it was stolen, right? By a monkey. Well, it's the effort that counts. Asher's gonna kill me. Okay, so that's basically what we're working on here. For those who care. Alright, so let's go back here and see what we've got going. Boom, boom. What's going on tomorrow? Forsooth, it be false. Evan Shepherd, upon Amon way back in 1988, had a nightmare about his gravesite. Incredible work for a one-man show. That's a lot of frames. Are you talking about me? Is that referring to this, what I'm working on? Or is that something else? Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I always sort of assume, if I look in the comment and I see something that might, you know, sort of gratify my ego, I try to check it at the door and assume that they're probably talking about something else. The blight of ego. Ego is an ugly, ugly thing. Okay, so here what we want to do, I believe we need a one-frame tween to get his hands down. And let's look at his facial expression as well. So yeah, it's about, well, I mean, it's 48 minutes worth of show. So my hope is at the current rate, I would really hope that by the middle of summer, that might be aggressive, but I would hope by maybe July, I'll be able to deliver the whole thing, you know, the whole show, the 48-minute double-length pilot to the to the distributor and get it going. Okay, so here, this facial expression really doesn't make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to duplicate that. And now here's what we're going to do. Let's take everything that doesn't make sense. See there, I just hit E again and it didn't take. You silly, silly thing. So let's erase everything that doesn't make sense here. Like, oops, bad move there, Jack. I don't want to erase the hands. Okay, so there we got that. S key, boom. A key, drag that down to there. Okay, S key, grab this. A down to here. And now we just have to get his arms chomped in there and we're in good shape. So now what I'm going to actually do is jump back to the pencil test because I don't want to be... let's see, why is that light? Hang on a second. Oh, okay, I dimmed it with the curves. Okay, so one thing I used to do a lot more, and it's bitten me in the fanny plenty of times, is going from a concept that I have in my mind directly to ink. And what I've learned is that's a really, really bad idea for me because I tend to get really sloppy on anatomy and, you know, it just, quality starts to go downhill fast. So I want to take a moment to just block in the pencil test. Right here on the ink, by the way, this is obviously not really quite right. So and the best way to start is just sticks and balls, right? Here, I know his shoulder's here. If his wrist is here, then his arm's got to be foreshortened way back like this. So just get the sticks and balls right and then build out the character around it, and it's going to be pretty easy to do. So I'm not an animation purist in the sense that I'm trying to do Disney here. You know, I'm really much more oriented towards an anime approach, both stylistically in terms of the look of the show and also in terms of you know, my approach to the work. I try to be reasonably pragmatic and say, you know, what's the economical way to carry out the storytelling that's either just as good or even better than a more complicated approach that requires a lot more animation, you know. So hence, if it's a walk cycle, this just came up the other day, but if it's a walk cycle, you know, you're going to see a character going like this with the background panning or zooming behind them. I'm not going to kill myself trying to draw a walk cycle because I just don't think anybody cares. I just don't think anybody cares. As long as the story keeps moving forward and you're engaging with the characters, that's what matters. So that's what I try to do here. I guess I'm kind of talking to Arthritic One just because he's new and he may not know quite as much. I don't know if you've been here before. You know, say so, but I don't remember seeing you in the chat. So again, I always want to welcome new people. I hope I have something reasonably useful to keep y'all busy. So apparently, you know, it's reasonably obvious that there's a fair number of people that have tuned into my live streams just to listen to the audio, listen to whatever I'm chatting about that day, right? And I don't consider myself exactly much of a podcaster, but we do get into some deep topics here. I was listening to, in fact, well, we'll just let the conversation flow here. I was listening to, you're a great and wonderful artist. Oh, thanks. Man, I haven't done that in a long... Well, that's the danger of switching screens, I tell you. I swear. Well, that just goes to show what an idiot I am. You know, all I'm trying to do here, and then I don't even have the... You know, I criticize Krita. I criticize the Krita developers, and I say, like, how do you miss that, right? How can you possibly not notice? And then I go and do that. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you that I am just every bit as dumb as the people I criticize. So again, check your ego at the door. Sorry guys, I apologize. And Darren, gotta talk to his egg. Speak to the id. Right on, man. Right on. Absolutely. Okay, so let's wake Krita's interface back up here and see what we've got. Da -da 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 -da. Okay, so now let's cut to this, and this is just going to be a insert, a brand spanking new keyframe. Now I do want to be somewhat aware. What are you doing over there, Val?
The light came.
Oh, Zuko's light. Yeah, we got a UV light for Zuko, so that it's really good for their bones and their sleep cycle if they get a little bit of UV light every day. And obviously with a bird you can take them outside if you're, well, in Zuko's case, he used to fly a lot. It used to be 2 years ago or so, it would have been quite dangerous to take him outside because he was flying a lot. Like he would fly across the room, and you know, I'd put my hand out and he'd come to my finger and land on it, and then I think basically what happened was he hit puberty, and he just went through a phase where he was plucking, and you know, it's common with domesticated birds, but it's always a drag when it happens. And so he's pretty, well, what do you call it? Not his coat. What do you call his body of feathers?
Plumage.
His plumage. Okay, we'll use the word plumage. So his plumage is pretty good, actually, but the problem is he still picks at his tail feathers, which means that he can't freaking navigate, you know, if he flies. So, most unfortunate. Anyway, long story short is, if you want to make sure your bird gets enough UV rays, but they're not able to get out in the sun in the wintertime or whatever, then a properly configured UV light, apparently, according to all of our research, can be quite good for the bird. So, so there you go. That's what we did. We're like, okay, let's just get a UV light that fits the specs and see if that turns out to be beneficial for the little guy. We shall see. For those who wonder, he's an African gray parrot, which is a fairly rare bird to have. We were kind of lucky, actually. We got him shortly before some of the... Do you remember what the reason was? They sort of clamped down on the importing of...
Oh, they did that before. I mean, he was...
Oh, he was already in the States. I gotcha.
No,
yeah.
He was raised as a baby in the States.
Okay, so he was actually born and bred here. So he was not imported from Africa.
No, that stopped about 5 years ago.
Okay, so Val's telling me that the bird import actually got clamped down about 5 years ago or something. It's been a while. So it's a lot harder to get an African gray parrot now than, say, 10 years ago or so. So there it is. If you're into birds, to tell you the truth, I'm not a bird guy. Val's the bird guy. Haha, so to speak. She used to work in a pet shop and spent a lot of time working with the birds and yada yada yada. She just kind of been one of those people. So when the time was right, we were like, you know, let's find an African gray. She had one years ago, and for various reasons, dealing with her circumstances in life, had to sell him. Let's see here. All right, let's zoom out a bit. I really like that change in expression. Boom, boom. I like the tween. Feel like I did a good job on that. I don't like the size of his hand though. I always do tend to draw Mel's hands on the large side, but on the large side. But I think I went a little too far here in this particular drawing. So yeah, we could get into all kinds of interesting topics here today. I was listening to Alan Watts not too long ago, letting one of his lectures put me to sleep. But my controversial view is that there's no such thing as time. Val disagrees with me on this, but I think I'm right. I don't think there is any such thing as time. What do you think, Val? Is there any time?
What?
Is there any such thing as time?
Of course.
She says, of course. I say no. No, there's no such thing as time. Now, if you guys are interested, I'll give my explanation of why I think there's no such thing as time. But it requires a little setup. I should write a book. I should write a book on esoterica and call it Timeless. Yeah, so his hand is obviously looking a little stupid. Let's hit the N key and the 5 key, and let's go back to the... So Maria, thank you, Maria. You're always... Count on Maria to be interested in why I think there's no such thing as time. Okay, let me put it this way. In order to provide the backdrop to my theory of time, you have to look at some things about human psychology. Consider the following. Number one, we know that human witnesses in like crime situations or whatever are notoriously unreliable. Okay? We know that, you know, psychologists have done plenty of tests to demonstrate that people's perception of reality is essentially a story that they tell themselves. In other words, in our memory and in our moment-by-moment observations, we miss most of what's there, okay? And then our brain has to construct a story to explain reality to ourselves. That is not even disputable.
Yes, our memories are not time-based, they're location-based.
All right. So, given that that's true, so we know that this is a fact of the human experience, okay? And thank you, Full Chain. I think it doesn't exist. So we know this is true of the human experience, is that we are storytellers, we are story makers. Now this is a deep topic, because if you buy into it and let go of the concept of time actually being a thing, it elucidates a lot of other questions that seem unrelated about the human condition, like questions about politics and religion and why we do what we do and emotional wellness. There's a lot of implications that flow out of this, my opinion about time, because the whole reason I have this opinion of time is buttressed by my view of human psychology and the fact that we don't need time anyway in order to function the way we function, because the perception we have of time is something we construct in our brain to explain what we perceive, okay? Well, let's look at animation. I mean, animation's an interesting topic. You've got 24 frames a second, or maybe 8, or maybe 12, but what you have is you've got a sequence of frames that manifestly are provably still frames. There's nothing moving. There's nothing moving. That's a fact. And yet, when we play it back in sequence, in other words, there's a change in the light, there's a change in motion, what we perceive is not only the passage of time, but what we perceive is a story that emerges from the animation. So the story that we construct is clearly being constructed in our own mind. Now, the crafty animator or the crafty storyteller obviously can do a better or worse job of sort of deliberately triggering you to perceive the type of story or emotion or whatever connection that they want you to have. So obviously there's that craft. But if we go back to the, I don't want to go back to the Big Bang because the Big Bang is debatable these days, actually. But okay, let's put it this way. Animation is a great topic to start with because it is one arena where we can prove that a motion sequence results in the perception of time passing, even though no time has passed. Okay, now you can say, well, the movie played for 10 minutes or whatever, and so 10 minutes went by. You can say that. But what actually changed was the picture that's projected on the screen. That's what really changed. In other words, to summarize it, just to sort of, so I'm not being cagey about where this theory comes from, is I don't believe there's any time because I believe there's only motion. I do believe that there is only motion and everything's in motion. And it gets pretty hairy. Think of it this way. Not only is every cell and every molecule in your body oscillating at different frequencies and whatnot, not only is that true, but at every scale we look at, what we find is everything's moving all the time, okay? Well, and Tom, I'm glad you said that, Tom. That's an important thing. The question of sampling rate is hugely important. There's a lot of things ever since my college days, because I was doing a lot of digital sampling in the early days of digital sampling. And understanding sampling, the Nyquist frequency, sampling error, how you can have a change in rate cause a total change in the frequencies that are perceived from the samples, yada, yada, yada. Brief explanation is this. If I take a sample of sound, and then I take another sample of sound, and then I take another sample of sound, I have to, in order to construct this wave, I have to have all three samples, because if this sample was missing, then the wave that would be reconstructed would be this. It would just connect these two dots. So you have to have a sampling rate that's twice the frequency of the lowest frequency that you want to accurately reproduce. That's why your sound card on your computer is typically 44.1 thousand samples per second or 48,000. It's one or the other typically. Unless you get into Pro Gear where it's like 96K or whatever, but and 24-bit instead of 16-bit, but the principles still apply, obviously. So if you think about your perception, we don't know what the sampling rate of eyes are, for example. We know there is a sampling rate because the wagon wheel effect doesn't only happen in film. I mean, you get sampling errors with your eyes where something moving really fast in a circular motion appears to be moving backwards. That happens with normal vision. So we know that there is a sampling rate. I'm just not sure what that sampling rate is. And a very important question you could ask yourself about the human experience is whether we are all synchronized to the same clock. I suspect we're not, but we could be. Why is that important? Well, if your perceptions are sampling at a fixed sampling rate, then there's all kinds of questions you could ask yourself about esoterica. Why? Because if my brain takes a snapshot here and then I don't want to say period of time because that's time-based language, but I take a sample and then I take another sample, and then an important question becomes, what happened in between when I wasn't looking? What happened between the samples that I never could perceive, that I didn't perceive and never could, because my sampling rate isn't high enough to pick up everything that goes on in between? So now there's a lot of questions about our human experience that are derived just from the simple question of what's going on between the samples that we perceive. That alone means that there could be a lot of stuff going on around us all the time, ghosts and all this kind of stuff, that they're right there, but you're not allowed to perceive them. And there's nothing you can do to perceive them. So that's kind of an interesting concept. But getting back to motion, here's the deal. You think about this. Every cell in your body is oscillating. We know that to be true. Every molecule. there's nothing that isn't in motion 100% of the time. Now, when scientists talk about dimensions, I've got a little different take on dimensions. You know, people like to talk, you know, physicists who like to use obfuscated language to make it sound really fancy schmancy and complicated, like to talk about, you know, up to 22 different dimensions. And of course, they never explain what the dimensions really are because they probably don't even understand it themselves. But if you think about motion, if you think about dimensions meaning axes of motion, then think about it. You're on the Earth. The Earth is rotating. The rotating Earth is revolving around the sun. The sun is revolving around the galaxy. The galaxy is spinning around. And probably, I don't know this to be true, but probably the universe as we perceive it is actually more or less a toroid. And if our galaxy is actually on the surface of that toroid, so that this toroid is moving around like it's moving in 3 dimensions, right? So it's, you know, then that would explain why everything in our visible universe actually appears to be expanding away from everything else. Everything's expanding away from everything else because it actually is expanding away from everything else on the surface of a freaking donut. And there's at some point, you know, 500 billion years in the future, we'll be at this point in the donut and everything in our visible universe will actually appear to be contracting because it turns out this is just an endless cycle. Right? Now, of course, I don't know this to be true, but that view does explain a lot of what we can perceive. You know, you know, what we're able to see or measure is explained, you know, in our universe by the fact that, well, we're actually on a surface that's an eternal, endless cycle of oscillation. Okay. So, what does that have to do with dimensions? Well, think about this. When we think about your position in space, think about where you are right now. Okay, now stop. Take another sample. 1 moment later, do you realize that you have traveled probably at least 1 billion miles in the moment between when I said, think about where you are now, and now think about where you are now? In that moment, you actually traveled 1 billion miles in objective space. That's not even debatable. Why? Because you're on the Earth's rotating, revolving, going around the, you know, everything is in motion. So now that becomes very interesting when you consider the idea that the actual objective position you occupy in space right now at this moment, 10 minutes later, maybe that objective location is actually occupied by something from the complete other side of the galaxy. Just a moment later. Now, it might take more than a moment. We don't really know what the time scales are. So Tom says, what's my gender at this moment? I don't really get that. Okay, so Maria, the thing about the Einsteinian thing about time seems to move at different rates for certain animals. The whole thing about, it's my personal opinion at this point that Einsteinian, let's say, commitment to the Einsteinian view has done as much damage as good in terms of our understanding of what's really going on, because it seems inexorably locked to the concept of time, which I think is I find it to be a somewhat naive view. But, you know, what do I know? I'm not a physicist. How many lives has the universe lived in this view? How many? Well, okay, so now we're getting into real deep esoterica, and by the way, it's dangerous territory for a guy like me who as a filmmaker am, you know, identified with a Christian worldview. You know, the problem is that for me is that by and large, I reject the Christian worldview in the way that it is presented in Western culture. Okay, so having said that as a little caveat, if you think about the way gosh, the way molecules work, if you think about the way nature works, you think about the mycelium that's in the ground. You know, when you take a step on the ground, I think it's like 3/4 of the density of the soil you're walking on is actually living mycelium, which is, of course, what mushrooms spring up out of, right? The largest creature in the world is actually a mushroom. It's mycelium, and it's intelligent. Mycelium is smarter than people. They've used mycelium to almost like a computer to reroute the Tokyo subway system, and the mycelium figured out a more efficient way to route the trains. So I'm not going to expound on that because you can look it up yourself, but and I'm changing Mel's ears here a little bit to be a little bit more sensible. And probably this should come out a little bit. There we go. B key. So anyway, my point was this. Okay, if you set aside the Western Christian view, let's just go to the East for a moment. Okay, so and I'm going to summarize this as neatly as I can. Okay, in the Eastern view, just broadly speaking, I'm using the term Eastern view as just a catch-all term, okay, for like Hindu and Buddhist and all these different sort of traditions that are not Western Christian traditions, okay, and or any Abrahamic religion, okay, so that takes Judaism, Islam, and Christianity into account. Okay, so I think the view that is probably more congruent with observable reality would be this assumption, because we know the principle of preservation of energy and mass. I mean, nothing ever goes away; it always remains around. So the great question, of course, for humanity is what happens after I die, right? So anyway, in this idea of this universal cycle that never ends, going around the toroidal donut that presumably takes trillions and trillions of years, in fact, it's an eternal process. The question then becomes, well, what are you? Well, if we think of it like the mycelium, where actually healthy organic soil it's literally alive, right? Because there's so much organic matter woven throughout that soil that that really does behave intelligently. It solves problems. It knows where to go to find resources. It converts resources. When they had a massive oil spill and all their chemicals couldn't clean it up, throwing mycelium on it cleaned it up in 2 weeks, because the darn stuff can eat anything. It's amazing. So anyway, so let's just say you're a node. So you're a node that pops up above the surface, okay? So, and my mother would probably agree with this because she's very much into like reincarnation, stuff like that. So the idea is that you are actually an eternal soul, okay? You're an eternally evolving soul. And on the other side, so this is life, and obviously this would be death or afterlife or blah, blah, blah. I think the view would be that death doesn't actually happen. The body dies, but you don't die. Your consciousness continues. And so this experience that you're having on Earth in a life is just an experience that you actually chose, and it was kind of sort of designed for you in order to learn whatever you needed to learn and experience what you wanted to experience. And you say, well, that's kind of wacky. I mean, that's like crazy stuff. You're just making stuff up, right? Well, wait a second. Unless you're going to get into some multiverse theory where you really, really buy into the idea that everything that's happening right now is literally just a replay, like literally, of something that happened before, well, then you can provably say that what we are experiencing right now is unique, right? Nobody's ever lived your life exactly like your life on this earth at this time, Nobody's had your experience. So therefore, does it not also stand to reason that God or the universe or the creator or the source is in fact continually evolving and changing and experiencing? You are. Well, why isn't it? And if that's true, then is it possible that you are in fact a node that is actually connected to the source. You're connected to God. And God takes great delight in this experience that you're having, because when you have this experience, you're actually sharing that experience with everything that you're connected to. So in this line of thinking, this just keeps happening over and over. You live this life, and then you return back here to the source, and you kind of do a little review. This is like what near-death experiences reveal, if it's, if you can believe it or think it's true, is that people tend to go through this life review where they decide where they, and it's not judgment. This whole idea of judgment is most suspect for me. The idea of hell and judgment and all that stuff is very, very suspect for me. I'm not saying it's definitely wrong, but it's very suspect. Why? Because throughout all of human history, you just see the same pattern over and over, where misinformation is always used consistently in order to invoke fear in people, in order to manipulate and control them, or take their money, or get them to behave the way you want you to behave, or follow your rules. And it's always in support of some sort of power base. I mean, that's what we saw in the Middle Ages with the Catholic Church, not to pick on the Catholics too much, but, we see it in the Bible itself, in the New Testament. If you put any credence in the letters of the Apostle Paul, immediately after Christianity arose, it was all about correction. It was all about all the things you're doing wrong. I mean, that's what basically the New Testament is. The writings of the Apostle Paul are, here's how you're screwing up, and here's how you need to do better. So they were getting it wrong from the first day. Think about that. That's crazy. And so then you have people with different isms today that just assume that, everybody else for the last 2,000 years has gotten it wrong. But not my group, not my story. My story's the right one. Think about how arrogant that is. It's insane. It's actually really, really, really insane. So this gets back to what I was talking about time. The reason I don't believe in time is because I believe that what we do as human beings is we create stories. That's what we are. We are storytellers. This is how we entertain ourselves, is with stories. This is how we keep ourselves comfortable when we're uncomfortable about things like death or things we don't understand, COVID-19. What do? Well, we make up stories. Some of the stories are maybe more accurate to a completely faithful rendering of reality. And probably most of them aren't really that close at all, right? And some of them are just complete batshit crazy, right? But there's people that embrace all of them, the whole spectrum. Well, why is that? Well, it's because our number one predilection as human beings is to tell a story. The whole idea is that it is a mechanism by which we protect ourselves and we make sense of our own reality. It's just what we do. And if we are storytellers, then where does the perception of time come from? Well, the perception of time simply comes from the fact that your body, your senses are continually taking snapshots, and then your brain and your emotions, they all work together to construct what? A story. How accurate is the story? Well, just go look at the court records and see how accurate witnesses are when they report what they saw. They're very suggestible. It's how law enforcement is able to get false confessions out of people and get them so stressed out that they actually believe they committed the crime in some cases. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And why would that happen? Why would the manipulation of the story about a legal situation, for example, why would the manipulation of the story be used by an aggressive, a career aggressive prosecutor who wants to chalk up some wins in the courtroom and get some convictions? Why would they use a story to manipulate someone's, memory to get them to either confess to a crime or to confess to a lesser crime so that they never even have to have the expense of taking them to court, just throw them in jail? Now they're in jail forever, or they've got a felony on their record forever, and in some states they can't vote. So in some cases, this type of thing is used as a mechanism to basically keep people, often of color, frankly, from being able to vote. So what do you see happening there? To get back to what I'm talking about, is what you see happening there is those who are in power, meaning law enforcement in this case, use our predilection to accept and or tell stories to advance their agenda. Well, how is that different from what religion has done for the last 10,000 years? Or at least many religions. Certainly the Abrahamic religions, the religions that are all about rules and punishment and judgment. It's socioculturally and historically, it always seems to be used for the same reason. Does that mean the story's wrong? No. Doesn't prove the story's wrong, but it does render it highly suspect. And the example that I give that I think drove this home for me was the 2020 election. Because here you had a situation, as I have said here before, here you had a situation where historically, a month after something happened, in the age of the internet, with the best technology, the best communications in the history of the world as we know it, we don't know what happened. And half the population believes one story that, in my view, is batshit crazy and is increasingly being revealed to be that. And the other half the population believes a completely different story. How is this even possible? How can we screw up so badly? How can we be, so my view of time, because of this predilection we have towards storytelling, reveals a lot about religion. It reveals a lot about politics. It reveals why we do what we do. It's pervasive. The principles that are in play here are literally pervasive to the human experience because they affect everything about us because we are telling stories 100% of the time. And the only way we can get around the weaknesses that are naturally associated with that proclivity is to be, I guess, let's just say a little bit higher-minded people who are being very vigilant. In other words, most people, if you tell this to a lot of people, they're going to go, yeah, that's, people that are in cults or whatever. Yeah, they do that, but I don't do that. That's what the other people do. That's not what I do, right? Because this is the natural human response, is to immediately go into defensive mode. If somebody questions your view of reality that makes you comfortable, and by the way, this again goes back to religion and other types of social groups where we retreat to a like-minded group who sympathizes with us and makes us feel comfortable. So that we don't, in other words, what we specifically want is to not grow, to not learn, to not face the truth. That's actually what we're all about as human beings most of the time. So it takes a person, this is why I see sort of spiritual, I don't know, let's call it a higher spirituality or something, being something that is quite vanishingly rare, because it takes a person who is absolutely determined to look in the mirror and go, you know what, it's me. I'm that guy. I'm that guy that's been telling myself a freaking story my whole life. And by the way, guys, I say right here on this channel right now in real time, I'm that guy. David Weese, creator of Salt and Light. I am that guy. I think these issues are some of the things I want to deal with in my show. I don't have a religious agenda or anything like that, but I do have an agenda to maybe comment on or make some observations about the human condition and manipulation, the stuff Golik's trying to do. Some people just choose that. They just choose a path of power, manipulation, control, because they're convinced that's what will make them happy. Is Golik right? Well, he's partly right. For some period of time, he will be happier if he gets his way in certain ways, if he's able to get into a position of power. But then, after a certain period of time, that's going to wear off. It's going to get boring. He's going to want more and more and more. Why not? And that's because the salve that he was trying to put on his inner woundedness really didn't heal it. It never did. It never was going to. But he doesn't believe that. Now, isn't that what we do? Somebody comes along and tells you, this is what'll fix your problem. You don't really believe it. You're not really prepared to abandon your wrong-headed thinking in order to embrace a completely different view that rocks your world, shakes your whole worldview up. That's scary. It's way easier to just go back to church and go, yeah, I met this guy. What a whack job. He's going to hell. He's doomed. Glad we're not. That's way easier. And to be fair, I can empathize with why someone would do that, because the community aspects of that, the connection aspects of that, even though it might be a little naive or sort of a communal storytelling where we're all going to just share a delusion, it's kind of that. But the community aspects of it are good. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater here. Traditional religion serves a useful purpose to a degree when it doesn't become manipulative and abusive of, various people or populations or whatever, right? So that, the bottom line is that for me, the pretty provable idea that we are just basically storytellers. So I don't think that your reality as it happens to you is just something you invent in your mind. I don't believe that. I mean, the material world does exist, but your understanding of it is woefully incomplete. Woefully incomplete. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, here's where an esoteric view, this is where good religion, if you will, for lack of a better term, really, really comes to the fore. Here's why. Think about it. If we can accept this truth, that we are all kind of trapped in this shared delusion, then literally all we have is each other. And our shared experience, we can sort of compare notes, right? Share ideas, maybe learn something, maybe Tom has an idea that I never thought of, right? And so the only way we can become mature, let's just say, again, for lack of a better term, good people, is to have the humility to realize how fouled up we are in the first place, how little information we really have. And the goal is not to come up with the right answer. That's my point. It isn't coming up with the right answer so that we can say, well, here's the recipe, here's the truth, because the truth's always changing. It's just like motion. It's just like the universe being in motion. If you try to describe to me, here's where I am, the moment you tell me where you are, you're already somewhere else. You're not there anymore. It's the same way with your growth. The minute you think you've arrived, by the time you understand that you've understood something, the information has already changed, and now you have more to learn. And I think that's kind of how the universe works. It's like that node thing. The growing never stops through all eternity. You never stop learning. You never stop growing. It's the whole point of the system. This is why I find the law of one kind of interesting, because the law of one holds, and I'm not saying I believe in it, but I think it's interesting ideas. The law of one holds that all souls, it is a reincarnation-based philosophy, okay? But it holds that all souls basically make a choice, and the choice is simply this: service to others or service to self. And those who choose service to self are not really any more evil than those who choose service to others. It's pretty much just that they're going to have a bumpier road in sort of evolving, because somewhere along the line, eventually they're going to flip back to service to others once they've experienced enough pain pursuing service to self that they, finally say, okay, enough's enough, and we're going to go in a better direction here, kind of thing. But you guys can look that up on your own if you want to. The whole what the law of one is. It's basically ostensibly some information that was channeled from aliens back in the 1980s, and like I said, you can look it up and see. Probably most people will say, well, that seems like a bunch of hogwash. Understandably, and it probably is, and it might be. We don't know. Okay. All right, I'm going to go up north here and just scan through the comments here. Try as much as possible to show both sides of an issue. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I kind of politically tend to be a centrist. is because I don't think there are right answers all the way to the left or the right. And in fact, it is the negotiation and the compromise in between the extremes that leads you to solutions that never satisfy anybody. Nobody's satisfied, but can be workable for everybody, right? So I tend to be I'm not going to comment about Elon. If he wants to buy Twitter, that's his prerogative. So, okay, I love it. You guys are having fun talking about my cult that I'm starting. Yeah, that's right. I was not looking at the chat. Waterworld. Yeah, and that movie was a huge bomb, too. Huge bomb. One of the biggest bombs in history, if I remember correctly. Huh. But it might be good, Okay, I think Souls is like the mycelium you mentioned earlier, a collection of stuff that gets portioned out into lives and then returns to it at death. That's pretty close to what I'm thinking at this point in time. And again, westernized evangelical, especially Christians, are going to totally choke on that. But you got to remember too, though, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that they just bleep over. When Jesus ostensibly raised from the dead, nobody recognized him, right? Well, is that because in that culture, actually the idea of reincarnation was completely a normal part of Jewish thinking at that time in history? Many historians hold that it was. And why did they say to John the Baptist, hey, are you Elijah? Did they mean, are you reincarnated from Elijah? So Western Christians they're gonna go through all kinds of gyrations to explain away the clear seeming references to reincarnation. And the reason they have to do it is because the convoluted let's see how I want to say this, the theology that is forced and wrung out of the Bible, it's squeezed out and made to work, demands that a person only have one lifetime and then you're judged. That's very, very important. And again, that comes back to power. Implanting in people the idea that they live once and then they definitely get judged gives you a framework by which to tell them, but, we're going to tell you that you just have to believe in Jesus to be saved. But if your conduct doesn't come up to this or that standard, then that just reveals that you're not really in the club and you're going to get judged. And so now this is how we get you to behave the way we want you to behave. Now, there's no argument that that's been done throughout history. But again, that doesn't prove that the theology's wrong either. I tend to think it probably is wrong. Right? So I probably most agree with what Tom said there about relating us to mycelium. I think, but I don't know. Nobody knows. Whoops. Nobody knows. That's the problem. Ooh, nobody knows it. Nobody knows it. All right. So anyway, that's why I don't believe in time. I just believe that we are nodes that are taking snapshots and then constructing a story. And a big part of the story is, whoops, that's not what I intended to do right there. A big part of the story is what we describe as the passage of time. That's all. Very simple. Very simple. So let's go S, grab this, A key. So those of you who want to tell me I'm nuts, hey, I love you anyway. Because of course I'm all about, if I'm going to talk about esoterica, I'm all about peace and love and joy and yada, 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 right? Kind of, sort of, maybe. Oh, come on, I'm in erase mode. Whoa, sounds like Zuko got a bath.
Yeah,
Well done. Well done, my dear.
cackling.
Who's cackling?
As you go.
He's laughing?
Cackling.
Oh. Boom. Oh, put that there. See what we've got here. Do we want to just... I think if he's going to... He's going to tween out. I tell you what. I think that I am going to redraw. I'm just going to redraw Mel. Just because I think it's a good exercise. And it's fun, by golly. So I've said here, by the way, after a lifetime of indoctrination, I realized I was an atheist. You know, unfortunately, I'm probably, with the sort of ideas I'm promulgating, most people would probably characterize me as an atheist too, just because there's so many tenets of Christianity as presented that I just think are either wrong-headed or so I don't fit in the club that well anymore. I really don't. But I think everybody, to me it's like everybody's welcome here. I don't care what, because we don't know who's got the story right. We don't know. This is why I guess I have said here before that my Christianity is this. I believe that there's a creator. That I do believe. I believe the creator might be what we call source, in the world of esoterica, where you're saying, it's the divine intelligence that basically holds us all together. And in fact, and in fact, we're part of it. I think the nodes idea makes the most sense from the vantage point that we are literally it's just like, we know in biology at this point, we didn't know this not that long ago, is that most of your body is not you, right? Most of your body is bacteria and stuff, right? There's more cells in your body that are not you than there are cells that are you. Well, what's the implication of that? Is it totally ridiculous to think that our bodies are a fractal model of the universe? Because when, the deeper we look, the more we see that everything we learn about, physics and molecular biology and everything else has this fractal character to it, where the patterns that we see repeat at larger and larger and larger scales, and smaller scales. And they seem to hold true at any scale as big or as small as you want to go. You see the same kind of patterns. Right? So is it so ridiculous to think that, like a cell in your body that, by the way, dies when it outlives its usefulness, it just dies, it assimilates back into your body, and some of the raw material then gets reused to make a new cell, right? Is it so ridiculous to think that that's what you are? You're just a node that's having an experience, and then you'll, at some point you're going to get retired, and then you'll assimilate back into the body, as it were, which it turns out is the whole universe. And then, the basic reason that makes this difficult for people is the terror of the idea that you lose your sense of self. Basically your self-awareness or consciousness of your own experience. I'm afraid I'm going to lose that if I just accept the idea that when I die, I die. I guess the only argument to be made for that is, well, if that were true, then you wouldn't know it. So then basically if it happens that way, you wouldn't care. That is true. And so that's not an effective deterrent to manipulate your behavior, by the way. That doesn't work that well. So you being a reincarnated node doesn't give me any framework with which to manipulate you. You just dying, and if you're dead, and that's the end of it. That doesn't give me a framework with which to manipulate you. But coming up with a story where there's this thing that happens where you undergo this judgment, and you just think about this. The proposition is that the creator of the universe loved you so much that he created you to then die and suffer unspeakable torment forever if you don't believe a certain story in a certain way, coming from certain people. I mean, it's a little beyond the pale if you think about the proposition there. You know? You agree?
What proposition?
The proposition that God loves you so much he created you so you can suffer eternal torment. If you don't buy into the story somebody tells you about what you're supposed to believe, which by the way means we also now get to control your behavior, because if you don't behave the right way, then that means you're really not in the club. Your decision of faith really wasn't sincere. I mean, it's just the gyrations that we go through in order to make this all work are just silly. It's just goofy, man. So yeah, I mean that's, but on the other hand, it isn't my goal. I mean, I talk freely about it here, but it isn't really my goal to like wreck anyone's faith either. I really don't have any desire to do harm. I'm just exploring ideas, I'm just expressing what seems to make sense to me, with the caveat that I may be wrong. I just don't know for sure. Hey, Blifton. Hey, Darren. BG going to go left to complete. Also did parallax shot doing layers. Busy. I'm an extra life via cheat code. Nice. Bingo, Maria. What did Maria say? The prisoner proclaimed, I'm not a number, I'm a free man. Right. I mean, obviously, we're all kind of joking around a little bit, but most of the polytheistic religions just incorporated gods into their own systems, adopted and reinvented. Their gods were basically just like us, as more so. Well, certainly the mythologies were that way. And there's a good case to be made for early Judaism being absolutely polytheistic. Certainly the Godhead spoke in the plural when he talked about creating the earth, according to the Bible story. So, again, what Christians do is they explain that away somehow. Well, that's the Trinity. Well, what exactly is the Trinity? And of course, that's been a topic of debate for time immemorial. Nobody's been able to agree on it. In fact, that's really what the Council of Nicene was about. The Council of Nicene was not about establishing the biblical canon. It was about debating the question of whether Jesus was actually a God or a man or something in between. That's what the purpose of the council was for. But if you look at the origins of Christianity, they're fairly suspect too. If you look at the role that the Thavians had, Christians really are misguided when they point. For example, they talk about the writings of Josephus as being support for the veracity of the historicity of the Bible. Well, the thing they're forgetting is that Josephus was a Jewish historian. Yes, there is one mention of this carpenter dude named Jesus in the writings of Josephus. But basically everything, consider this. Number one, everything Josephus wrote that we care about today, his name was Josephus. It was Thavius Josephus. His writings that we have today were written after he was specifically enlisted by the Romans to write propaganda for Rome. I mean, the Romans had a problem, and the problem was these Jewish sects that were kept rebelling. Rome was about the rule of law. Law and order. We're going to come in and take over your country, and yes, we're going to rule you, but basically we're going to allow you to function, keep your culture, for the most part, but you just have to swear allegiance to, Rome. And these Jewish sects that were causing trouble, well, they were causing trouble. And the Thavians had the opportunity, the means, and the motivation to craft this story long after the purported occurrences about this humble carpenter who started a whole new religion, which was a Jewish religion of meekness. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Turn the other cheek. There's plenty of reason to, it doesn't mean the story's not true, but there's plenty of reason to suspect the story because they're just like the 2020 election, just like Donald Trump saying well ahead of time, if I lose the election, by the way, if I lose, there must have been fraud. Yeah, okay. Why would you say that? You know, you're just laying the groundwork so that a bunch of naive people will believe the lie when it becomes necessary for you to come full circle and actually issue the lie, which is, yes, indeed, it turns out there was fraud because I lost the election. Therefore, there must have been fraud. And now all you people that are naive enough to believe that I'm not a charlatan are going to then be aghast and in some cases become insurrectionists because you believe so strongly in this story that's been told to you by this opportunistic guy that is seizing upon your naivete. Which is, the naivete is understandable. You know, you've got certain principles and values and you want America to look a certain way. And actually, it isn't even that your picture of the way you want America to look is so bad or wrong. I'm not even sure I object to that much. I object to the charlatanism, but I don't necessarily object to all the principles. Some of them I do, to be frank. And increasingly so over time as we see some of these, you know, these voter suppression laws that we've seen emerge in different states. You know, and especially with what's been going on with the January 6th committee, it's increasingly obvious that there was not a huge widespread conspiracy, but there was a conspiracy. And a very well coordinated one within a small circle of people. You know, that all were stakeholders in the outcome in terms of their own power and position. I don't understand it myself. Okay, so what we got here? Hillary claims Russian intervention cost her the 2016 election. Well, you know, and Hillary's welcome to claim that. I don't know if she's right or wrong. I have absolutely no idea. And at this point, probably don't much care. I think it's pretty well established that in various ways Russia has tried to, you know, influence the outcome of our elections. And frankly, you know, it's not like anybody can't do it if they don't have the ability to set up a bank of blades and you know, write the code to generate Facebook accounts and YouTube accounts en masse, you know. It's not like anybody couldn't do it, probably, if they were really committed to finding a way to do it. So I don't like decry that and complain too much about the platforms, because to me, if you don't like or trust the platform, then why are you on the platform? You know, there's an argument to be made. I mean, you know, about social responsibility and all this kind of thing. But I guess I won't go there because that becomes a whole argument of its own that I'm not actually equipped to make at this point. I think the bottom line is I'm not a threat. You know, so if I'm sharing ideas, I'm just sharing ideas. You know, I'm not trying to wreck anybody's life or anything. I'm just exploring ideas. What did Marie say? I don't think God is an entity. God is part of each of our brains, like an instinct. We're all born knowing right and wrong spiritually. Ever is another question. So watching two large political parties fight each other is an opportunity cost that everyone has to pay. Well, that's true. That's true. Yes, I agree with you, Tom. And the implications are far-reaching. And I guess the question in practice becomes, who do you blame for that, right? Is the platform at fault? are you at fault because you're wasting your time sucking it down, you know, hour after hour and day after day, right? And, you know, probably the best answer is it's a little bit of all the above. Well, it looks pretty good, actually. But I do want to, whoops, I do want to block this in a little more cleanly. So let's just draw the lines first, and then we'll break it up into fingers. That's better. Okay, hit the X key, and now I can say that, back to animation here, by the way, you know, when I take the time to just redraw all the, you know, as far as the ink and paint process, usually I don't regret it. It usually turns out things look better when I just take the time to do a bunch of drawings, you know, but it does take time. Here we have a case where theoretically there's some opportunity for reuse, but again, today I'm just going to coast with doing it the old school way, just because I'm kind of having fun doing so. 220423. It's year month day. Wait, what is year month day? Who has more influence on the US, Russia or China or England? Wow. The correct side of the road. I suppose you could probably get used to driving on either side of the road if you did it for a little bit. Okay, I'm going to say this is not right. Yeah, let's go back here. Right. Let's smack that right there. I do want to have the hand expand like that. It's a little cartoony, but that's okay. This is a cartoon after all. X key, B key. Crossing streets in Cairo was scary. I've heard that driving in some of those places over yonder, like India, which of course is not exactly Cairo, but pretty scary, pretty dangerous. Not a lot of rules. Okay, I'm gonna flip this guy. This is a one frame tween anyway. Walking in Juarez. Where is Juarez? I think I'm going to flip it back again. Wait. It's probably okay. I might have to scale it down a little bit. But why did... I wonder why she brought Kita in. Boom. So I hope you guys all enjoyed my diatribe about why there's no such thing as time. This is obviously completely stupid looking in the sense that this needs to be here. Duh. Well, it's interesting stuff. I don't know that I'm going to start my own cult or anything, but it would be fun actually to probably to have like a channel devoted to those types of ideas and stuff. I think it'd be fun. But as I've alluded to here before, if you got an axe to grind, why not just do it through storytelling? You know? In my case, animated storytelling. All right. Zoom out. Okay, yeah, so here, are we going to actually change that expression a little bit? I think so. Boom. Boom. Hmm. It's always amused me how left and right became associated with the terms for right and wrong in many languages. Is that... I didn't know that. I mean, here in America, I think of left and right as being sort of like on the political spectrum, right? Why'd you bring Kita in?
Before I took Zuko out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize. I thought you had Zuko taking a bath. Apparently she took Zuko outside. Yeah, you do not want to have the dog and the bird occupying the same space. That is a good way to have the bird get killed. Particularly because Kita is a very, very efficient hunter. She is really, really good at killing stuff. Right and wrong, but it flips based on which side you align with. The left hand is the dreamer. Huh. I never heard that one. Flattening that out a little bit, like as his body's coming up, it sort of pulls it straight. Now this is probably a little wrong. Oops. Let's put that there. There we go, that's better. Yeah, that looks more natural. Okay. Oh, this is a fun way to work. Is Full Chain still here? Full Chain Animation, you still around? You haven't said much in a while. The way I'm doing this ink was arriving at this really fast flipping sort of approach was something that was partly inspired by Full Chain's work. You know, seeing how he animates. Not, I mean, I guess I really haven't seen how he animates, but seeing what his animation looked like. I like Full Chain animation. Oh, you are still here. Just chilling, huh? Cool. Cool, brother. Yeah, you and Nugget 40, you and Ross could. It seems to me that your guys's um, work is really compatible. Like the two of you could do some interesting animation work together. I'm quite sure. Stylistically compatible, I would say. Thanks. I have only one live stream video where I kind of go through my process. I don't know if I've seen that because I remember you were struggling with kind of getting your live streaming dialed in. But yeah, I would really like to see. Look, what I'm doing here, you and Ross, you kind of get it from Ed Tadeo, but I mean, you guys doing a video like what I'm doing where you really get to see the whole process from beginning to end, I would love to see it. So consider this my vote, for either one of you guys or both of you to just do a video that's a sort of just a behind the scenes, start to finish would be a lot of fun to watch for me. So that could be my Christmas present. Oh, Keto, what are you whining about, girl? No, that would be really cool. I would love to see that. I mean, to me, that's what's interesting, It's just what I do here, It's just the unglamorous grunt work of going from a bunch of scribbles to something that looks kind of cool, Love it. I love it. Let's zoom out and see if this is actually looking okay. Yeah, it is. See this ink work has a lot of life to it. See, when I do it this way as opposed to a lot of cutting and pasting and liquefy, it definitely has arguably a little bit more of a authentic anime feeling to it, I think. There's no arguing that, I guess, unless of course you want to argue it. Okay, let's pop his thumb around direction. I'll try to do more of those. You got a better mic now too. Cool. Thank you, Darren, for seconding the vote. I would really I would love it. I would love to see that. Now here I could cheat a little. The problem is, let me do it this way. Let's grab this. We'll grab it from the wristband. Okay, so I'm going to go Control-Shift-V and then immediately flip this. But then I'm not going to stop there. I'm actually going to go up here. And, well, no, better yet, let's do it down here where we've got a little more room. Okay, and now I'm going to leave it selected. I'm going to go into liquefy mode. And good, I've got a small controller. And now I'm just going to try to make this not quite so stupid, okay? Not quite so ridiculous. Probably stretch this one out a little bit, right? Okay, so now having done that, that's better. That's a little more under control. And now what we can do is let's just get rid of this and grab this, move this up here like so, and then hit Control-C and just, oops, that's not what I meant to do. I want to go Control-Shift-V. I do not want to, come on, there we go. Control-Shift-V, again, flip it, and then we'll just replace this one with the slightly better one. Okay, so S key, grab this bit here, delete it, S key, just using the blank space on my canvas as a little bit of a scrub area. Okay, B key, No selection. And back to work. Okay, I should tighten this up in the pencil test. I should tighten this up. Yep, see, that elbow is wrong. That really needs to be more like that. I'm just drawing an arc here. You know, I'm drawing an arc to get those elbows lined up. Ask myself where that elbow would be, right? So, sticks and balls, people. X key to switch from red to black. And now we'll just, whoops, that was silly. I think I might get Arby's today. I don't eat like junky fast food very often, like maybe once a month. But I am thinking I might be in the mood for Arby's today. On the other hand, I was thinking I wanted to start retiring some of the stuff we have in the freezer. A lot of frozen veggies and stuff like that. So there is that to consider. This is a little bit coarse. I want to clean that up, friends. I want to clean that up. Boom. That's better. This little bit of messiness doesn't matter much because it is a one frame tween. So, N key. Oops, didn't mean to go home. Okay, I guess I forgot to draw Mel's face. And there's still some stuff here that needs to be dialed in. Boom, boom. So I'm probably getting ready to quit here soon. I'm approaching the 2-hour mark. This has been pretty good. I mean, it's not like lightning fast progress or anything, that's for sure. But I am definitely doing things a bit the hard way. Just because I feel like doing more drawing and sort of traditional frame by frame. You just get that sort of chaotic noise in the ink work when you just keep redrawing it. So it's not really, there's no right answer. Reuse is not a crime either, you know. Yeah, pre-recorded stream would work too. Wait, it's my upload speeds that mess up your stream. Maybe I'll just do a pre-recorded video. Yes. Just turn it on and then just leave it go all day, and then if you want to get more views, do a speed draw version of it. You know, just do a speed draw for those who don't want to wait through the whole thing, you know, and then at the end of the speed draw have the finished shot that they're going to see, right? But then have the long version that is just what I'm doing here, you know, just slowly going through and just doing your thing, man. That would be super cool. It doesn't have to be a live stream. In fact, I mean, in some ways, live streaming, I've been thinking about this actually a lot lately because I am trying to do a lot of work. You know, my work volume on this cartoon has definitely been ramping up. And so it's definitely made me think, geez, am I really live streaming more than I should? Because it's like my little esoterica talk here today. You know, I am probably not progressing on the actual animation as quickly as I should. Let's just say that. I think that's a safe bet because I blab too much. And it's fun, you know, it's fun to connect with you guys and chit chat. But at the same time, I've wondered, geez, maybe I should only be live streaming like maybe twice a week or something. I don't think you guys would care. You guys wouldn't care or miss it because, you know, most of you don't tune in all the time anyway, or even for a long time. And the times that seem to make the most sense, hey Clash Tunes, is Sunday night. So what's today? Today's Saturday. This is Saturday afternoon. Sunday PM seems to be a good time for a live stream for me. So if I was going to reduce it, that would probably be the definitive time. Okay, so what we're doing is just getting this. So what's going on, Clash Tunes? What you been doing, man? Let's get that dialed in. I will cut and paste the hands. That's for sure. I have a question. Why don't you try 3D? That would be easy and faster. I don't agree, Clash Tunes. I do not agree at all. Actually, you know, as far as 2D and 3D, you know, I was doing some work with Blender today and decided to, I keep going back to Blender because I've been using Blender for 20 years. But yeah, doing 3D, I don't want to do 3D. I'm not interested in doing 3D. That's pretty much all there is to that. I'm big into reuse, obviously, so there's certainly a time to, if you modeled these characters in Blender and then you used Freestyle because you maybe you wanted a 2D look, or obviously you could use the grease pencil. There are certainly some aspects of it where you get reuse and tweening, and there's definitely things that can save you some time, which I do all the time anyway. Like right here, great example of this actually is grab this arm. I don't need to redraw this arm. Control Shift V. I just need to reposition a little bit, right? But as far as a full 3D approach, I kind of went down that road in the 90s. Been there, done that. Not really my cup of tea these days. So I have more fun drawing. So that's pretty much the reason. So 3D is not easier or faster. Yeah, and I think the thing is, if I was going to do 3D, the middle ground between 3D and 2D in terms of a workflow, let me show you guys this. Actually, if you look at, let me turn the audio off, and I'm going to pull up something I noticed earlier today. Yeah, channels like this, like this is a channel of fairy tales, and I don't know if they're using like Anime Studio or whatever, but this is a really, really efficient approach to animation. I don't think they do it great. They do it pretty well, for sure. The only thing I don't like about it is everything's too flowy. Everything's flowing all the time. If they had more holds, like snap and hold animation going on, this could be really, really amazing. And the thing is, look at what they're doing. Everything's a 3/4 view. So this is totally like Anime Studio Pro type stuff, right? Because you're setting up a rig. This is all completely rigged. You can see it. You can even see the flaws in the joints, right? So on PBS, a show like Wildcrats is pretty much the same thing. There's some stuff. I think that the Disney Channel 2D Rapunzel, or it'd be Rapunzel or Tangled or whatever show, is kind of like that too. It's mostly 3/4 view type stuff, and you can really dial that into an excellent animation style. There's no question about it. And frankly, for what Clash Tunes is saying, that is kind of the 3D approach, or the rigged approach, where you're just creating a model and then you're just articulating it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. It's the 3D thing that I'm not into so much. You have more subs than well, good for you, man. That's awesome. I definitely don't. Nobody's particularly interested in what I do here. But that's okay. When it's all said and done, I'm going to have a show that I'll be able to release, and it'll be cool, and we'll hopefully maybe even make some money from it, right? So but yeah, I haven't been to your channel in a while, Clash Tunes. I should check it out. I don't remember, like, right off the bat what your stuff is like. Clash Tunes. Okay. That is awesome, man. You got like almost 500,000 subscribers. This is so cool. It must be, it's not like the animation stuff is is like, oh my God, that would be so hard to do. It's not that. So your stuff must be entertaining. I mean, you must be entertaining people, and I commend you for that. I think it's awesome. I may be working way too hard, and if I wanted to have more subs, it'd probably make more sense to just do some stuff that makes people laugh, or whatever. So, but yeah, that's really cool. Your channel's dead. You're trying to learn 3D to revive it. Really? So in other words, you're not growing. Well, if you want to reveal it here on YouTube, I wouldn't expect you to, but I'm sure people wonder, how much money per month is 400 subscribers worth today. Again, don't feel pressure. I encourage you not to answer if you have any discomfort. But if you don't care, then I'll guarantee you people wonder. I will guarantee you. I wonder. My paltry 3,000 subscribers is worth about $12 a month. But I mean, I'm not really creating to build subscribership and make money off YouTube. That's not really what I'm about, right? So my commercial media clients are what pay my bills, and then I'm looking forward to releasing this show, through conventional distribution channels, the same distribution channels that have distributed my live action feature films. So you actually know how YouTube works? Well, tell us, dude. Tell us all about it. Tell us what you know. I'm definitely interested. I am totally interested. I am always eager to learn from somebody who knows. And I appreciate having a guy like you come around because, the fact is, nobody else here knows. I mean, there might be a couple. There's a few like, that have a more substantial number of subscribers and are actually monetizing YouTube and everything like that. But most of us aren't. Most of us are just kind of hanging out, and doing our thing. This is definitely going to have to be cleaned up in a major way. Major way. So you're trying to revive so you're thinking that the way to revive your channel and basically get the views and the subs starting to kick up again. So I'm saying, it sounds like what you're saying is, even though you've got a 400 and some odd subscriber channel, basically you're saying it's dead. So the viewership and the subscribership has tailed off, and you're thinking 3D is the way to get it to pick up again. I hope you're right, man. I mean, I hope it works for you. If that's your, if that's what you're, if that's your livelihood is YouTube, certainly we want you to be successful. That's for sure. And we want you to be able to continue creating content that people enjoy. So do you have a theory about why, if I'm understanding you correctly, do you have a theory about why the interest or enthusiasm for your content has slackened? Do you have a theory why that might be the case? That kind of stuff is always interesting to me. Boo-doop, boop-be-doop, doop. Ba-dum-bum. I don't think that the crux of what I'm doing at the end of the day probably is not going to be, especially with Clash Tunes, I'm assuming you've watched the show, okay? Because I have 6 webisodes up here on YouTube. So I'm going to assume you've at least seen some of them or one of them. I don't think that the fact that it's 2D, or I don't think that's what's going to carry the day for this show. Okay, I think what's going to carry the day for the show is the total package of the writing, the characters, the voices, the animation, the music, the score, everything working together to create a hopefully a reasonably entertaining, 24-minute animated show. But of course, we don't really know. I mean, the webisodes don't get that many views either, so there's that to consider. But I'm not sweating it at this point. I'm just focused on trying to be good and reasonably fast at cranking out animated entertainment. So looks like Clash Tunes has gone quiet on us, so maybe I'm poking and prodding more than is appropriate. Boom, boom. Okay, just for consistency, I am going to grab this bit right here. Control C, go Control Shift V, and just paste this in. I'm just going to move this over like that. Oops. You've got to be in erase mode if you want to erase, you silly goose. Am I right? Am I right? You've got to be in erase mode to erase. Could turn on the skins. Okay, his ear grew a bit, but that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna turn those back off. That's obnoxious. But boom. Well, I think I must have really offended Mr. Clash Tunes, because things definitely went quiet there on the old chat. Yeah, well. Brickwork, my friends. This is what it is. It's the brickwork of animation. It's just doing it, man. Doing it. Dudes. Dudes and dudettes. Alright, let's see what we've got. Let's turn off the sketch. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we gotta obviously edit the red out. Like Visine, get the red out. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an issue. Nah, I mean, I guess we're okay. That feels pretty good. That looks a little sheepish, which is kind of what I was after. So, I can't tell money. That's because of the policy. Oh, okay, sure. But I can tell the ratio based on some kind of product. My channel's dying because they're not consistent. So I can buy an iPhone 13 with 1 month of income if the month was high on views. So okay, well that's a good way to put it. I mean that's a fair explanation. The more you upload, the more views. Sonic is trending and the movie got released. Yeah, so that helps, right? Yep, it's brickwork. About as bad for your back too. Well, it depends on if you're standing or sitting. I go both ways because my desk, my desk is one of those ones you can raise up. Right now I've got it down, so I'm in a chair, but when you're old and decrepit like we are, you got to be a little more careful. Alt M gets rid of that. So yeah, and I'm pretty consistent on streaming, but I don't know. I don't think too much about what's happening with YouTube in terms of audience building or anything like that because it's just not where my focus is. you know, as I said, it's fun to interact with you guys, but what I'm my focus is on just getting the show created. Let's see what goes on right there. Oh, okay. That's probably just a lip sync thing. So here, let's see. Is there a change? There is a slight change. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Watch this, my friends. What I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this joint. And the reason I'm going to erase the joint is so I can actually put these two keys in here and then make it all make sense with some liquify. All right, so hence 1, 2, doesn't have to be exact to the pencil test. So there's that. Now I'm going to do the same thing over here. S, A key. I don't care about the details, like getting the forearm correct or whatever. It doesn't matter yet. A key. All right, so we'll circle that around like that. And just, I'm actually putting my hand over the screen so I don't see the forearm, because that's going to have to be deleted anyway. I don't want it to distract me. So, oh, come on, really? Krita has missed my E key like way too many times today. Okay, so now we've got that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is A, liquify. Okay, and in this case, actually this is kind of what, wait a second. Whoa, a lot of well, and of course I lift every day. You know, most days I lift. I used to make rush animation for like 6 hours, do 6 hours of work for YouTube per week. But now I'm software engineer. Okay, so you've got a day gig. You were planning to modify open source open tunes according to my workflow. Maybe Blender too. Well, that's wonderful. Dude, we need good developers in the open source community, because, I mean, if you paid any attention to my channel, I'm bitching all the time about Krita and all the bugginess in the program. So I'm definitely a whiner. Okay, so now I'm going to do something here. Watch this, you guys. You may find this interesting. Watch this. This kind of gets to what Clash Tunes is talking about, not about 3D, but certainly about reuse. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take Mel's head and move his head off here, and I gotta set it like, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to move the head somewhere where it's still in the frame. That's not going to work. Unfortunately, I don't know where to put. I know what to do. Let's put this here for a moment. Okay. I know this looks like total whack stuff. Okay. So what I'm doing is I want to get rid of his head. Okay, I could clip it to another layer, obviously, guys. I'm just kind of playing around with a workflow where I'm able to keep it all in a single layer, but I'm just going to move it over here. Okay? Now, why did I do that? Why did you do that? I did that so that I can now use liquify liberally here on his shoulders, and here we're just gonna cut it out. I have hit the E key and had Krita not detect it so many freaking times today, I'm ready to scream. Okay. A key, liquify. All right, so what do we got? Boom. See, this is where having everything actually in separate layers so that I can isolate things better would definitely be kind of helpful. But that's okay. That's okay, guys. I don't care about that curvature on his arm. I don't care. What I care about is the shoulders. Okay? That's what I care about. Okay, so now we'll fix it. Don't worry. We're going to fix it. Okay? So let's take this and put this back here now. Leave everything disconnected. And then Control C. Let's go to the next frame. Control Shift V. And obviously we've got some mess there. Control Shift V. And then he's going to have a little change in his expression that I'll have to draw. And Krita's now updating the cache. Yeah, so his facial expression's got to change. But now I just have to go through and connect the dots and fix the arms, like where the arm's broken. No big deal. So Maria asked me, I've never been able to touch my toes even when I took ballet 3 times a week. Wow. Why, that's terrible. Okay, and with that, I'm going to quit. I am starting to mentally check out a little bit, but I like the way that went. I think here with a little bit of fix-up, you know, for example, G, E, there, it just missed it again, by the way. Just get rid of that. Yeah, we'll get rid of that too. We'll just redraw that part. So I'm redrawing the stuff that's easy to redraw, and I'm moving around the rigid stuff that's hard to redraw, you know, more or less. Here we've got, let me look at this. I would say it's this that we want to get rid of. We'll get rid of that, clean that up, and we'll just, as I say, we'll just clean it up. No big deal. Connect the dots. So, wow, that trick is so cool. What trick? You mean just cutting stuff out and moving it around? Just saves me having to, but it's just like the sculpt tool in Blender. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So if I was doing the Blender thing, I'll just show you real quick. Okay, so if I was doing Blender, I'd basically be, I've got Blender dialed in so that if I draw Melchizidek, for example, let's just kind of sketch him in here. I can hit the E key and instantly be sculpting, right? And obviously you could do motion tweens and all the rest. And then D key, if I hit Control, I've got a hard eraser, so it really chumps it out of there, kind of thing. So as far as pencil testing and blocking and animation, I'm big on Blender. You know, I love the sculpting part, you know, hit the F key and shrink this down and, you know, whatever, right? And then back to the D key. And so that works for me. It's just that for ink and paint, I'm just still getting better results generally, at least what I like with Krita, so I'm just kind of staying there. So, well, it's like playing a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You can't start the drawing and then not finish it. So let me just kind of, at least kind of sort of finish it. It's not the best drawing I've ever done of the guy, but there it is. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the way the workflow works in Blender for me. Cloudy weather has arrived. It's sunny here, friend. It's sunny here. So, yeah, this, obviously, that needs, I swear to God, I am going to scream. Krita will not register the E key. What you have to do is you have to hit B, wait half a second, or G, wait half a second, then hit the E key. And I'm just going bap bap, and it misses it at least half the time. Crazy. Crazy people. Okay.
Any questions from the floor before I sign off and get myself some delicious lunch?
Yeah, I'm liking the way that came out, actually. So we're about not quite halfway done on this thing. So Tom says, thanks. That means, yeah, sign off, Dave. You're done. So, okay, guys, it's been fun. And as you guys know, there absolutely will, right on, Class Tunes, there will be more later. So